Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a book that's, well, it's pretty controversial. Some call it a brilliant guide to strategy, others call it a manual for the manipulative. We're talking about Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power.
You ever ask yourself this question? It feels like we're all taught to play fair, but then you look around and see people getting ahead using, let's just say, different tactics. Well, that question is exactly what Robert Greene's book tackles head-on. Published back in '98, it's become this must-read for anyone trying to navigate our hyper-competitive world.
So Greene kicks things off with a pretty dark and unsettling idea. He says that our modern world, our offices, our social circles, they're not what they seem. He argues they operate just like an ancient royal court, totally full of hidden agendas, power plays, and constant scheming. To survive in this court, Greene says you need to master what he calls the velvet glove approach. What does that mean? Well, on the surface, you've got to be fair, decent, even charming. But behind the scenes, you're quietly, strategically setting yourself up to win. It's a game of appearances, and what you see is almost never the whole story. Okay, so if it's a game, how do you actually play it? Let's get into the nitty-gritty and look at 5 key laws from Greene's playbook to see how this all works in practice.
This quote from the very beginning of the book just nails the core idea. It's a paradox, right? To gain power, you can't look like you want power. You have to hide your ambition behind a friendly, socially acceptable mask. Congenial yet cunning, democratic yet devious.
So this isn't about being a bulldozer and forcing your way through. It's about smart, indirect strategy. You frame your big ideas as being for the good of the team, all while making sure you're the one person that team absolutely cannot live without.
Now, law number 1. This one is going to feel completely backward. We're all told to shine, to show off our talents. But Greene says, nope. He warns that if you outshine your boss, you don't get a pat on the back. You get fear, insecurity, and, believe me, resentment.
So the real power move is to make your superiors look even more brilliant than they are. You subtly guide them to your ideas, and you let them take the credit. It's all about playing the long game. You're managing their ego to build your own secret path to power.
And if you thought that was cynical, just wait for law number 2. Greene gets ruthless about relationships. He basically argues that in the game of power, emotions, especially friendship, are a huge liability. The logic here is kind of cold, but simple. A friend can get comfortable, they can get envious. But a former enemy who you bring to your side, they have everything to prove. They're going to be more loyal, more reliable. So in this world, it's all about utility, not sentiment.
Next up is Law 3, which is all about a classic tool of power, keeping people guessing. Greene says you should never reveal what you're truly up to. The less people know, the bigger your advantage.
Think about it. If your competitors have no clue what your real goal is, they can't plan a defense. They're stuck reacting to your moves, always a step behind, always a little anxious. And that keeps you in complete control.
Finally, Greene hammers home that in this game, how people see you is often way more important than who you are. And that's where Law 5 comes in. Your reputation is everything.
A powerful reputation does the work for you. It can intimidate rivals and open doors before you even say a word. It's your greatest weapon, but it's also your biggest weakness. Guard it with your life.
So, we've gone through some of these pretty intense laws. But what's the one lesson that ties it all together? What's something you can actually do?
It all comes back to mastering that velvet glove. And you can start right away. First, practice making your superiors feel smart. Second, become a sponge for information. Listen more than you talk. And third, find small ways to make yourself indispensable. Do these things and you'll be seen as a helpful ally, not a threatening rival. Okay, we have to address the elephant in the room. Is this book a work of strategic genius, or is it a handbook for becoming a sociopath?
And honestly, the book's greatest strength is also its biggest flaw. On one hand, the historical stories are fascinating, and the advice is brutally practical. But on the other hand, it's completely amoral. There's no ethical compass, which means it could easily be used to justify some seriously toxic behavior. So after weighing these profound, chilling insights against the very real ethical issues, where do we land? What's the final call on this book?
Our final grade is a strong 8.6 out of 10. Look, it gets huge points for its incredible research and its raw practical advice, but it's held back because it lacks any kind of moral guidance. It's an absolute masterclass in power dynamics, but one you have to read with your own moral compass switched firmly to on.
So, if this kind of thinking fascinates you, and you're wondering what to pick up next, we've got a couple of great recommendations for you.
First up is Robert Cialdini's Influence. It's a much more scientific and ethical look at the psychology of why people say yes. Then, of course, you have the timeless classic, Sun Tzu's The Art of War. It's the ancient foundation for a lot of Greene's ideas, but with more focus on preparation and strategy than on pure deception.
And that really leaves us with one final big question for you to think about. Is it better to understand these dark arts so you can defend yourself? Or does even studying them start to corrupt you? Ultimately, a book like this forces you to decide. Are you going to be a player in the game of power or just a piece on the board?